In Bali, a glass elevator careens down a 90-meter shaft, killing 5 of its passengers on its descent.
Safety inspectors found several violations of its safety standards upon further inspection. More details on this later in the news. Good evening, I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richie, Alagao-Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. President Marcos thanks the World Bank for gearing its programs towards post-pandemic recovery. The Philippines and Korea have inked a landmark free trade agreement. Prime Minister James Marape and President Joko Widodo reaffirmed their bilateral commitments on the sidelines of the ASEAN. Prime Minister Narendra Modi awaits the arrival of multiple world leaders for the G20 summit. And K-pop fans worldwide have their eyes set on the Philippine arena for the Asia Artist Awards. The latest report from the Philippine Statistics Authority, or PSA, reveals some noteworthy trends in the country's labor market, with the number of unemployed Filipinos declining to 2.27 million. This marks a decrease from the 2.33 million recorded in June. However, national statistician Dennis Mapa sheds light on an important shift in the labor force participation rate, which has decreased to 60.1%, down from 65.2% a year ago. Mapa attributes this decline to Filipinos transitioning to household duties and the recent impact of typhoons. In addition to this, various major industries have experienced significant drops in their employed workforce. This includes sectors like retail trade, public administration, and real estate, among others. On a more positive note, some sectors have shown growth in employment. The transportation sector, professional and scientific services, manufacturing, and others have seen an increase in the number of people employed.
The local stock market has shown a steady decline as collection rates from the United States Treasury and lower trade data from China have affected stocks and bonds on a global scale. This is despite the peso rebounding slightly at the foreign exchange or Forex close at the Thursday trade deadline. The Philippine Stock Exchange Index ended its 4-day rally as shares dropped by 58.62 points, with all shares down by 21.26 points. All sectors closed in the negative territory except for services, which slightly increased by 6.56 points. Holding firms had the biggest losses at 88.57 points, followed by mining and oil, down by 54.21 points, and the usually steady property and real estate market, trailing by 28.16 points. Counters closing in the red outpaced those in the green at 96 to 62, with only 50 firms having their stock prices unchanged at the end of regulation. In lighter news, the peso bounced back this day to 56 pesos and 79 centavos, gaining 0.15 centavos from the previous day's close of 56 pesos and 94 centavos to the US dollar. It opened the day at 56 pesos and 85 centavos from 56 pesos and 90 centavos on Wednesday's kickoff.
The Philippine deficit in the trade exchange outlook has continued to shrink by a significant 30% from its year-on-year outlook, having shrunk its deficit to just $4.2 billion for July of this year, compared to the $6 billion tab it amassed at the same time last year. Preliminary data gathered by the Philippine Statistics Authority, or PSA, also shows that the trade gap was wider than 3.9 billion pesos in June, when the deficit surged by 33%. Last July, export receipts reportedly decreased by 1.2% to $6.1 billion from $6.2 billion in the same time frame of the previous year. But the import bill dropped by 15.3% to just $10.3 billion from $12.2 billion. Economists say that the monthly readouts are expected to continue to recede as the unfolding global economic slowdown dampens the demand for goods, but these are expected to rise as the holiday season approaches.
The Department of Budget and Management has issued the release of 3 billion pesos in the fuel subsidy program. This initiative is set to be a lifeline for around 1.36 million individuals in the transport sector who have been grappling with increased fuel prices. Christina Gira tells us more.
Under the fuel subsidy program, eligible beneficiaries will receive a one-time fuel subsidy tailored to their specific mode of transportation. For those operating modernized public utility jeepneys and utility vehicle express services will get 10,000 pesos each. Traditional public utility vehicle operators, including taxis, traditional jeepneys, and school transport services will receive 6,500 pesos each. For those involved in the delivery services, there's a 1,200 peso boost coming their way, and tricycle operators can also expect a 1,000 peso subsidy. Christina Gira for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has extended his praise to the World Bank for its proactive approach in reorienting its programs to tackle the emerging challenges in the post-pandemic era. This came after the president's bilateral discussions with World Bank Group President Ajay Banga during the sidelines of the 43rd ASEAN Summit and related summits. President Marcos expresses gratitude that the Philippines has been named one of the beneficiaries of the World Bank's various grants, highlighting the Philippines' second financial sector reform development policy valued at $600 million. The president also lists other key development programs facilitated in collaboration with the World Bank. These include the Philippine Rural Development Program, the Teacher Effectiveness and Competencies Enhancement Project, and the Philippine Fisheries and Coastal Resiliency Project, among others.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. and Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese have officially forged a strategic partnership aimed at addressing the rising regional influence of China. Under this strategic alliance, both nations are committed to cooperate in a diverse set of areas, ranging from defense and security to addressing climate change and advancing educational initiatives, among others. President Marcos has expressed his heartfelt gratitude to Prime Minister Albanese for his unwavering support of the Philippines in the West Philippine Sea issue. Prime Minister Albanese has warmly characterized the two countries as great friends and allies, expressing his optimism that his visit will further elevate the relationship to new heights.
The Philippines and South Korea have inked a momentous free trade agreement, or FTA, reinforcing the partnership between the two nations. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has expressed his optimism that this agreement will go further than just government-to-government collaboration and actively engage private sector partners. The newly signed FTA holds a promise of eliminating tariffs on a wide range of products traded between the two countries. Notably, South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol has expressed interest in collaborating on the supply chain of critical materials. This cooperation could play a pivotal role in the Philippines' efforts to transition towards nuclear power generation, enhancing its energy security.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. welcomed the 5-year rice importation deal with Vietnam to help the stability of rice supply in the country. The Presidential Communications Office said that the rice issue was raised during the bilateral meeting between Marcos and Vietnamese Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh at the 43rd ASEAN Summit in Jakarta, Indonesia. Vietnamese PM Chinh has suggested an importation agreement on rice supply that will be determined by the free market. The Philippines and Vietnam signed a Memorandum of Agreement, or MOA, in 2008 to sell 1.5 million metric tons of Vietnamese rice from 2008 to 2010. Meanwhile, the Philippines Rice Tariffication Act, or Republic Act RA 110203, was enacted to allow commercial importation by adopting general tariff rules and removing the quantitative restrictions. This law has prevented the importation of government-to-government rice arrangements to around 90% imported rice to be sourced from Vietnam. PCO stated that some 1.5 million tons of rice, or $772.4 million worth, was imported from Vietnam last May. Coming up, President Biden has high expectations during his visit to Vietnam. Big things are on the agenda for the G20 summit. And Romania retracts their statement on the Russian drone that invaded their airspace. Stay tuned, Manta ng Agila International will return for more global news.
Wouldn't it be great to see our homegrown brands make waves in the global stage, similar to the diaspora? Join us on a journey that transcends boundaries and explores the endless potential of global expansion, guided by the insights and wisdom of Cheryl Ramos-Quintana, founding president of Orispa and chairperson of the Philippine Franchise Association, as she shares with us her expertise on entrepreneurial journey beyond Philippine shores.
Why do we need to bring these brands globally? Dito pa lang, ang dami na nating consumer, diba? Market, malaki na sa Philippines. But this can actually be a driver nga for growth and also be a bearer of the Filipino culture that we have so much to offer to the world.
Open for Business with Cesar Vallejos, Sunday, 9 p.m.
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. As Washington looks to move away from over-reliance on China, U.S. President Joe Biden visits Hanoi to boost economic ties. Several issues, however, hold back Vietnam from the growing investment. Estela Dominique tells us more.
A lack of highly skilled workers and weakness in infrastructure means Vietnam may struggle to replace its neighbor China. Vietnam has become a significant destination for some of the world's top companies. These include Samsung and Apple's supplier Foxconn. This due to escalating concerns over tensions between the U.S. and China. The U.S. is looking to source less from China after supply chain shocks rocked the global economy in recent years. And Washington sees Hanoi as an important partner. But General Director of Isung Electronics Vietnam, Ko Tae-yon, frets over a lack of skilled engineers. He forecasts a manpower shortage. Isung Electronics Vietnam makes components for LG automotive displays. The Labor Ministry reports that only about 11% of the domestic labor force is deemed highly skilled, and only 26% are trained workers with degrees and certificates. Estela Dominique from Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
President Joe Biden will arrive in Vietnam on a mission to bolster U.S. influence, but the heavy emphasis on countering China will likely confine human rights concerns to the margins.
Sự phát triển quan hệ giữa Việt Nam và Hoa Kỳ là không nhằm để chống ai cả, và đó là cũng phát triển trước hết là vì lợi ích quốc gia dân tộc của Việt Nam. Thứ hai là cũng góp phần vào cái ổn định, hòa bình và phát triển của cả khu vực và thế giới.
Biden will become the latest in an unbroken line of U.S. presidents since Bill Clinton in 2000 to visit the former Southeast Asian foe. The underlying goal will be to shore up support against China's growing influence during Biden's time at the G20 summit in New Delhi this week. This visit is a remarkable step in reaffirming the strength of the bilateral ties between the two nations, given their storied history, which may play a crucial part in strengthening the West's role in the future of the Indo-Pacific. They are expected to sign off on a comprehensive strategic partnership, which Hanoi only extends to those at the highest level of their diplomatic ties.
But now it becomes more evident that the two sides will upgrade their ties to the highest level, that is the comprehensive strategic partnership. I think it's now a timely moment for the two sides to do so, because when they celebrate the 10th anniversary of the comprehensive partnership, that will provide them with a convenient reason to upgrade their ties to the highest level without causing any unnecessary alarm in other countries, especially China.
Currently, Vietnam only has ties at the same level as Russia, India, South Korea, and China. China, which fought a war with Vietnam between 1974 and 1988, sent a high-level delegation to Vietnam this week to reinforce solidarity and cooperation.
There's still a long way for them to go to especially, turn the declaration into concrete actions and to gain the tangible benefits for both sides from this elevated partnership.
A delegation from China, led by Vice Premier Liu Guozhong, is scheduled to visit North Korea for its 75th founding anniversary celebrations. This development coincides with speculation surrounding North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's potential visit to Russia for a meeting with President Vladimir Putin. North Korea has confirmed that Liu's delegation was invited by the ruling Workers' Party, but it remains uncertain whether Russia has also received an invitation to participate in the celebrations. China is hoping that the visit will enhance bilateral cooperation between the two countries.
North Korea's recent launch of its first operational tactical nuclear submarine, named Hero Kim Kun-ok, marks a significant development in the country's efforts to bolster its naval capabilities, particularly in terms of nuclear-armed vessels. This highlights North Korea's intent to enhance its naval strength as a countermeasure against the United States and its Asian allies. Specific details about the submarine have not been disclosed, but it will be capable of launching tactical nuclear weapons underwater. North Korea has announced that the submarine would be deployed between the Korean Peninsula and Japan.
Indonesia and Papua New Guinea's top leaders reaffirmed the two countries' commitment in further strengthening the relationship. To tell us more, here is Eco Hortaleza Quinola.
The two leaders underscored the significance of respecting territorial integrity and sovereignty and reaffirmed their commitment to maintain stronger relations. As follow-up on their meeting in Papua New Guinea in July this year, the two leaders stressed on the need to expedite conclusion of trade agreements. This to reduce tariff barriers to benefit both sides by encouraging increased flow of trade activities.
Economic activity is once again booming since the opening of the SCORE Ocean Water and the launch of the direct flight between Port Moresby and Pasar.
In relation to the alleged human rights issues in West Papua, Marape says Papua New Guinea has no moral grounds to comment on these outside its own jurisdictions. The bilateral meeting ends with Marape's request from Widodo for more support for Papua New Guinean students to study in leading Indonesian educational institutes. He says this would build stronger connection between the younger generations of both countries.
I want to say thank you very much. Your leadership is appreciated. Indonesia and under your leadership, especially the placement of PNG in the forefront of your foreign policy outlook is sincerely appreciated also.
Eco Hortaleza Quinola, Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea. Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
The G20 Summit 2023, comprising 19 countries and the European Union and representing the world's largest economies, is scheduled to take place this weekend in India. While historically the G20 hasn't held significant prominence, India aims to leverage the summit to assert itself as a global power, with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi leading the way. The agenda will emphasize developmental issues, including climate financing, food security, and tripling sustainable lending to developing nations. India is also advocating for full G20 membership for all 55 African Union states, allegedly with German support. The ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict will be a critical topic of discussion, with France publicly declaring its refusal to endorse any joint statement that does not condemn Russia's actions. India, however, seeks to avoid using the term war in any official G20 announcement regarding the conflict. Both Russian President Vladimir Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping will not be in attendance at this year's summit.
Ukraine's parliament approval of Rustem Umerov as the new defense minister represents a significant change in leadership amid allegations of corruption surrounding the previous minister Oleksiy Reznikov.
Та зроблю все від себе неможливе для перемоги України, коли ми звільнимо кожен сантиметр нашої країни.
Umerov's appointment comes at a critical time in Ukraine's ongoing conflict with Russia. He has no prior military experience and led Ukraine's main privatization agency, the State Property Fund, for about a year before this appointment. His appointment may signal a shift in Ukraine's approach to the conflict, potentially emphasizing diplomatic and economic aspects, though the specifics of his strategy remain to be seen.
Romania's president has shifted his stance, now entertaining the possibility that a breach of sovereignty may have occurred in light of the recent claims by Ukraine, which persistently asserted that Russia launched attacks against NATO. It's important to note that the last Soviet missile attack on a NATO member was discovered to have originated from Ukrainian air defense systems. RT's Omaima Ichchar tells us more.
It is confirmed that these elements belong to a Russian drone. Such a situation would be completely inadmissible and a serious violation of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Romania, a NATO ally.
I can tell you that there was no part and no drone and no other part of any device that reached Romania. We have total control over our national space. I have checked absolutely everything and can reassure the population.
This is a very interesting turn of events, and let's take a look at the timeline. So on the 4th of September, Ukraine claimed that a Russian drone crashed into Romanian territory. Now, this was a claim that was denied by Romanian media as well as Romanian officials, including the Ministry of Defense and the president himself, saying that no drones detonated in Romanian territory. Now, after receiving no attention, of course, Ukraine kept on pushing back, saying that this indeed did happen. And so we have the Ukrainian National Security and Defense Council Secretary Alexei Danilov on the 6th of September, who has called for an acceleration of the Ukrainian conflict for a long time now. He has accused NATO of turning a blind eye against an alleged attack on another NATO member. Let's take a listen.
When Iranian and Russian Shaheeds accidentally or not got into Romanian territory and exploded there, NATO calmly watches all this and says, well, there was no such thing. Let's suppose it didn't happen. You can try to deny it and say that when it reaches the boiling point, you will say that it is ice cold. These are very dangerous examples.
Now, we can't really say that the change of narrative is because of the Ukrainian statement, but judging by the timeline, it all coincides. It's not a secret that Ukraine has long been trying to push NATO to get directly involved into the conflict, not really realizing that this would essentially mean a full-blown nuclear war. Now, let's remember that in November of last year, a Soviet missile crashed into Polish territory. And when that happened, of course, Ukraine again has said that that was a Russian attack on a NATO member and was trying to push NATO to get directly involved into the conflict and to use the Article Number 5 on collective defense, which essentially means that if a NATO member gets attacked, that would mean that the whole alliance would get involved into a conflict. Now, later on, of course, Poland found out that that was not an attack from the Russian side, but it was probably from the Ukrainian air defense who was responsible for it. Now, this is very interesting to look at because this Romanian scenario seems like some kind of deja vu almost. And we will just have to wait and see how this situation will unfold.
A couple of developments in Gabon, where the military seized power last week. The junta has appointed an interim prime minister and ousted President Ali Bongo Ondimba has been freed. Christian Fragata reports.
Opposition leader Raymond Endong Sima has been appointed as the prime minister of Gabon's transitional government. Sima is a longtime critic of Ondimba and lost to him in the presidential election earlier this year. The 68-year-old economist had served as Ondimba's prime minister from 2012 to 2014. Meanwhile, Ondimba has been freed from house arrest. The military government says he is free to leave the country to seek medical treatment. No information has been released on the state of his health. Ondimba suffered a stroke in 2018. His wife and son remain in custody charged with treason and corruption. Crescent Fragata for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Up next, the Felix Y. Manalo Foundation extends its humanitarian efforts to the neighborhoods of Lahaina. China proposes an odd ban on global fashion trends. And the Florida man tries to cross the Atlantic on a giant hamster wheel. Mata ng Agila International will be back after a short break.
Isang teacher dito sa ating bansa.
First week pa lang po nung teaching ko, na-depress na po ako.
Ano-ano ang mga daing at hiling nila?
May mga teacher talaga na nag-rant dun sa social media. Masakit po makita yun, pero valid eh.
Kamusta naman po, sir, yung sahod? Nahihirapan po akong sumagot.
At ano-ano ang mga plano ng ating pamahalaan para sa kanila?
For next fiscal year, wala ditong salary increase.
Ngayong Teachers Month, kamustahin natin sina ma'am at sir. Mag-reality check tayo. Naku, naalala ko tuloy si Miss Tapia.
Mga ka-netizens, abangan ninyo po dahil makakasama niyo ako sa Lutong Daza ngayong Sabado na 11 a.m. Gagawa tayo ng masasarap na mga pika-pika favorites at syempre with Chef Sandy and Miss Pat. Let's do this. Pika, 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 pika. Oh, 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 oh.
The Iglesia ni Cristo through the FYM Foundation continues its socio-civic activities, and now it has reached Maui County in Hawaii to extend its aid to the victims of the deadly wildfire. I'll be telling you more through this report.
These are the visuals of the beginnings of a fire that would soon become a national headline for Hawaii. Where on the island of Maui, it started with, some say, a downed power line or a simple bushfire. Now residents in the historical community of Lahaina would witness the greatest devastation of any wildfire in U.S. in the past century. And the aftermath is shocking to see. Homes burnt to their foundations, the intense heat even melting vehicles, power lines down, a beautiful place of history now made into a wasteland, while also taking lives. And those fortunate to escape this devastation shared their accounts, like Martin, a worker for the local cable internet company who has been assessing the damage for communications and has seen the devastation up close.
Well, the worst part is that, people lost homes, people lost their families. I guess the second hardest part is not being able to communicate out. No internet, no TV. Cell phones are down. Some of the families have a hard time communicating because of the loss of communication. And our main hub was totally destroyed. Right behind that was my house, my home. I could see the house was gone. And many houses above it. It was crazy to see. I was in shock basically the whole time.
And for residents like Miranda, without a home and place to stay, doesn't know what future lies ahead while desperately seeking for help.
Like my potential right now that I'm looking at is a tent in a friend's yard, because that's, there's nothing else, and it's a really big struggle for us to get donations over here.
But that struggle would be met with concern and care for those fallen victims to those devastating wildfires through the FYM Foundation. In partnership with the Iglesia Ni Cristo Church of Christ, members from the neighboring islands of Oahu and Big Island traveled to Wailuku as the staging ground of preparing hundreds of care packages filled with hygiene products, propane tanks, coolers, and drinking water, along with other essential items that would be prepared for distribution directly to families. First, starting in Napili Park in the West District of Maui, the first of care provisions were given, 200 care packages for families in need.
Once again, from the bottom of our hearts, through the mandate of our executive minister, we are here to help you at this very point in time. Rest assured that the Iglesia Ni Cristo will always have a very big heart for all of those who are in need. And the Iglesia Ni Cristo will always use the Felix Y. Manalo Foundation as their partner to extend help to those who are in need.
There were diapers and wipes, and we haven't been able to attend or go to the other distribution centers as much because we've been in quarantine for the last week.
It's such a blessing to have people coming and show they care in not only words but action.
Whatever nationalities, whatever color they do have, whatever status in life they may be, the Iglesia Ni Cristo is always there, extending help, lending the hand, so that the people who are in need will receive the help that they needed most. And they have felt the love coming from the Church of Christ.
And this extension of love and concern also reached the area of Wailuku. Continuing in partnership with the Church of Christ, the FYM Foundation used the congregation in Wailuku as another staging ground for providing 300 care packages, among other provisions, in helping families displaced by the wildfires. Like Martin, who shared his account of fighting to survive.
We're on the bottom of the smokestack, and that's where they found most people. But other than that, it was just straight survival mode, tunnel vision.
They will not go with an empty hand.
When the devastating wildfire here in Lahaina, in the island of Maui, Hawaii, struck, the Executive Minister of the Church of Christ, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, responded with heartfelt empathy and promptly took action. He immediately instructed Brother Glicerio P. Santos IV, the president of the Felix Y. Manalo Foundation, to provide assistance to those affected individuals. And this act of compassion resonates deeply with the aim and vision of the Felix Y. Manalo Foundation to empower communities, to foster their hope, and to provide assistance and help to those who are striving to survive, especially in these very challenging times in their life.
It feels amazing to have the community support and the church support this cause. So definitely thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Though it will take some time to repair all the damage that the wildfires have caused here in Lahaina, our Executive Minister, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, along with the loving support of all the members of the church, are committed to extend care and help to those in need and to serve as a beacon of hope during these terrible times, especially here in Lahaina.
And now that FYM Foundation has started its immediate response of aid here for the victims of Lahaina. Families are grateful for what they have and for what they received.
We're blessed to be alive. Yes. And we're blessed to have you guys because we're all safe, we're all accounted for. The only thing is, times is hard, so we can use any help that we can get.
malaking tulong po kasi kasi kailangan namin, especially ngayon, ang hirap kasi wala kaming work, lahat kami walang matirahan, ganon. Kaya talagang thank you po, salamat po sa tulong ninyo sa amin.
I thank the Lord that you guys are here and all the other communities and everyone is here to help. And that just shows how strong Hawaii is.
Gianna Llanes reporting for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Search and rescue crews in Greece have been kept busy rescuing hundreds of people stranded in flooded villages. Flooding from days of heavy rain has claimed at least 6 lives and another half-dozen people are missing. Nia James tells us more.
Widespread flooding in central Greece has submerged villages and farm fields. Streets have become deadly rivers. The flooding has washed out roads and destroyed bridges. Many villages are stranded and have sought refuge from the flooding by climbing onto the roofs of their homes. Others try to swim to safety or use boats. Emergency crews are scrambling to rescue those who are trapped. In the past 2 days, they have brought more than 800 people to safety. The heavy rains come on the heels of devastating wildfires this summer that killed at least 26 people. Nia James for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Egypt's president says the country has to consider measures to slow its birth rate. In the Arab world's most populous country, the population is growing at a rate of 11 births a minute. Aaron Aben has more details.
Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi says the country needs to drastically reduce its birth rate. Last year, Egypt recorded nearly 2.2 million births. Al-Sisi wants to see that reduced to 400,000. He says China's one-child policy is one way a country can lower its birth rate. The president says there aren't enough jobs to go around to support Egypt's rapidly growing population. And uncontrolled growth means there eventually won't be enough resources to provide people with education, healthcare, and housing. Whether the country adopts strict population control measures remains to be seen. Al-Sisi is expected to seek a third term in next year's presidential election. Aaron Aben from Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
In China, a draft law to ban speech and certain dress codes has sparked confusion and debate within Chinese people. People found guilty will be fined or jailed. However, the violations constituted in the proposed bill is not clear. Social media users and legal experts have asked for more clarification to avoid excessive enforcement. Recently, China released a wrap of proposed amendments to ensure public security laws. These amendments will also forbid insulting and slandering upon the names of local heroes and martyrs, as well as vandalism on memorial statues. The contentious clauses propose people who are forced to wear certain clothes and symbols that will hurt the feelings of the Chinese nation should be detained for up to 15 days and fined up to 5,000 yuan or $680 US. It also added that disseminating of articles or speech to damage the Chinese nation will have to face the same punishment. Meanwhile, Chinese President Xi Jinping takes the draft law as one example model of redefining Chinese citizens. The clothing law has received many online criticism from the public as an excessive and absurd move of the government.
5 people were killed after a glass-encased elevator collapsed in Bali, Indonesia. A glass elevator fell 90 meters into a gorge at a luxury hotel in Bali with 5 employees inside, all of whom have died. Rescuers stated that the cable holding the elevator was not strong enough, so the tragedy was only a matter of time. The lift had been declared safe by inspectors in November last year, but was reportedly working without an emergency brake and with only one sling rope to support it instead of the 3 it used a few years ago. The resort owner has pledged to pay for funerals for all the dead employees as well as their relative $4,000 each to dissuade them from filing a lawsuit.
A man from Florida was arrested by the Coast Guard who was trying to travel to London in a human-powered hamster wheel. Reza Baluchi was 70 miles off Georgia when officers found him during a manifestly unsafe voyage while Hurricane Franklin was headed toward the area. According to charges filed, Baluchi refused to get off the vessel, where he threatened to hurt himself by knives if officers boarded. He also threatened to blow himself up, revealing that the bomb was not real. It is not the first time authorities have found Baluchi trying to cross the ocean on a human-powered vessel. In 2014, the Coast Guard found him 70 miles off Florida in an inflatable bubble during an attempt to run around the Bermuda Triangle. Baluchi is charged with obstruction of boarding, where filings show he signed the conditions of bond of $250,000.
A manhunt is underway in Britain for a terror suspect who escaped from a London prison. 21-year-old Daniel Abed Khalife disappeared Wednesday morning. Jessica Bautista has more details.
This is the prison where authorities held Khalif while he awaits trial on terrorism charges. The former soldier had been working in the kitchen at the time of his escape. It's believed he fled by clinging to the bottom of a delivery vehicle. Security has been beefed up at ports and airports amid fears he may try to flee the country. A former British prison official suggests it could have been an inside job, adding Khalif should have been held in a more secure prison. Khalif is accused of a bomb hoax by placing a device at an Air Force base in January. Jessica Bautista for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Hong Kong was flooded by the heaviest rainfall in nearly 140 years on Friday, leaving the city's streets and some subway stations underwater. The heavy rain started on Thursday, where the city's weather observatory recorded hourly rainfall of 158.1 millimeters at its headquarters, the highest since records began in 1884. On Friday afternoon, the hospital authorities said at least 110 people were hospitalized due to injuries, with 4 in serious condition. The city's highest rainstorm warning level black was hoisted for a record-breaking 16 hours before being lowered, with rainfall mostly easing by late afternoon. Authorities issued flash flood warnings, with emergency services conducting rescue operations in parts of the territory. Hong Kong's Weather Observatory said the latest torrential rain was brought by the trough of low pressure associated with the remnant of Haikui. According to reports, the floodings could cost Hong Kong at least $100 million, compared to $470 million in damage when the city was hit by Typhoon Mangkhut in 2018. Coming right up, YouTube has launched a verification system for UK's medical professionals. EJ Obiena vaults back into Olympic form. And the world can't wait for the Asia Artist Awards at the Philippine Arena. Catch more news in business, tech, sports, and entertainment when we return.
Dito, ang inyong sumbong siguradong may responding katapat, hindi nagdadalawang isip na tumulong sino man ang nangangailangan. Expose, umaalingasaw na creek sa Parañaque City na matagal ng perwisyo sa mga residente pinaaksyonan.
Ang nangyayari, parang napabayaan na talaga yung creek namin.
Exclusive, aspiring Pinoy inventor na gustong ipakilala ang kanyang imbensyon na makatutulong sa ating kalikasan. Nagparesponde! Isang pampublikong paralan, may balik eskwelang hiling sa Responde.
Monday, first screening.
At Net25 Films na Monday first screening, nagatid ng saya at inspirasyon sa ilang individual na kapos sa buhay.
Salamat! Salamat!
Sabado, alas 6 hanggang alas 7 ng gabi, ito ang Responde, Mata ng Mamamayan.
Swiss watchmaker Blancpain and Swatch have worked together to release the bioceramic Scuba 50 Fathoms collection on September 9. These two Swiss watchmakers will introduce features of the bioceramic Scuba 50 Fathoms collection, in which it will have 5 distinctive watch models of the world's oceans. The Blancpain and Swatch models are made from bioceramic, a unique blend of 2/3 ceramic and 1/3 biomaterial coming from castor oil, with distinct colors from the original Blancpain design. This new collection has showcased a touch of Blancpain's iconic diverse watch, with the distinct features of shared Blancpain and Swatch logos on the dial and crown, adding that the watch straps have been crafted from recycled fishing nets. Collectors have recognized various features inspired by the iconic 50 Fathoms, such as the unidirectional rotating bezel for measuring dive duration and a self-winding movement against magnetic field. Meanwhile, Blancpain's president and CEO Mark Hayek thinks this partnership and collection would be a great symbol of engagement with the Swiss watch industry. He also added that Swatch has recreated perfectly the iconic model from its vision for a water-resistant timepiece with a depth limit of 91 meters, exactly like 50 Fathoms of nautical depth rating. The Blancpain 50 Fathoms have celebrated 70 years with the first true diver's watch collection. This collection is now available at select Swatch stores worldwide. YouTube has launched a verification system for UK-based doctors, nurses, and other healthcare professionals to help dodge medical misinformation online. UK-based users accounted for more than 2 billion video views of clips on health conditions in 2021. The verification system began accepting applications from UK-based healthcare professionals to those with an active medical license in June. Accounts that apply to the verification scheme are now starting to receive their YouTube mark of authenticity on their videos. Potential health creators submitting their accounts have to go through a rigorous verification process that works in partnership with the Academy of Medical Royal Colleges and the NHS.
In sports news, EJ Obiena has yet again captured a gold medal for the Philippines, as the U.S. Open Finals is now within reach. Vin Pascua has the report.
Filipino pole vaulter EJ Obiena has captured another gold medal, this time in the Natasha Donspringen pole vault competition in Germany. Obiena cleared 5.92 meters to secure first place in the competition. Coming in second place is America's Sam Kendricks, while Francis Thibault Collet in third place. The Filipino pole vaulter secured 2 straight gold medals in separate competitions in Germany, where he won the Staff Berlin a few days ago. His back-to-back championships are a bounce back from his 10th place finish in the Zurich leg of the 2023 won the Diamond League last September 1. In tennis, Aryna Sabalenka rallies past Madison Keys to reach the 2023 US Open final. This after Sabalenka has battled all the way to a come-from-behind win against Madison Keys in 3 sets, love 6, 7-6, and 7-6. After being brutally baggled by Keys with a flawless opening set, Sabalenka dialed back into the match and pushed it to a deciding set 10-point tiebreak. And from there, she then had to hold her nerve to serve it out, winning in 2 hours and 32 minutes. With defeat, The number 2 seed Sabalenka will advance to the championship match against Coco Gauff, denying a US Open All-American Women's Final. And that is our sports wrap for tonight. Vin Pascua for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Meanwhile, Serbia has clinched a spot in the final of the 2023 FIBA World Cup after defeating Canada 95-86. Bogdan Bogdanovic led the Serbians with 23 points, spoiling the run of a Canadian team with 7 NBA players, which was expected to challenge Team USA's bid for the World Cup title. Serbia, a team that does not have its biggest name in reigning NBA MVP Nikola Jokic in the roster, will play either the United States or Germany in the championship game on Sunday. Serbia returns to the final after finishing second behind Team USA in the 2014 edition. RJ Barrett, meanwhile, led Team Canada with 23 points, Dylan Brooks with 16, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander with 15. Canada will now play for third against whoever loses in the USA-Germany clash. Dubbed as Asia's Oscars and Grammy Awards, the 2023 edition of the Asia Artist Awards will be held in the Philippines at the Philippine Arena in Bulacan. Catherine Ortula has the scoop.
The prestigious Asia Artist Awards, or AAA, will be held at the Philippine Arena on December 14, and the lineup will be marked by top K-pop idols. On Wednesday, the AAA Organizing Committee announced that big-time K-pop idols Jang Won-young, Sung Han-bin, and Kang Dan-yeol will be hosting this year's ceremony. The AAA is an awards ceremony organized by South Korea-based business newspaper Money Today and its global media brands Star News and MTN. Since 2016, it has been honoring Asian artists in television, film, and music for their outstanding global achievements. Last year's edition was held in Nippon Gaishi Hall in Nagoya, Japan, with Super Junior's Eun Hyuk and IVE's Won-young as hosts. In a press release from Pulp Media, this year's awarding ceremony at the Philippine Arena plans to be what it calls the grandest and most talked about season of Asia Artist Awards since its inception. It also described the host country Philippines as, in their words, the loudest, warmest, and biggest fan base in K-culture. It has also been confirmed that P-pop and Filipino artists will also be part of the lineup, as well as Le Sserafim, NMIX, New Jeans, Boy Next Door, and Zero Base One. Catherine Ortula for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
I can already imagine the Philippine Arena being jam-packed on that day,
Yes,
that's for sure.
I'll definitely be there.
And it's Friday, Gianna.
Happy Friday, happy
Friday,
weekend.
everyone. That's right. And to send you off into the weekend, here's a quote from rap icon and activist Tupac Shakur. I know it seems hard sometimes, but remember one thing. Through every dark night, there's a bright day after that. So no matter how hard it gets, stick your chest out, keep your head up, and handle it.
That's a good quote to go off the weekend too, right? Because whatever you are going through, maybe you can think about that this weekend. You can get through it, just don't give up. You got this.
That's right. And as it's been said, it's not always rainbows and butterflies.
Yes. And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Again, happy weekend. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richie Alagao-Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.